To another one now in Baltimore, where the FBI says it stopped a plot to take down the city's power grid. 2 people are under arrest, a neo-Nazi leader and a woman accused of planning a series of attacks for months. Senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge is in Washington this morning with more on that. Catherine?
Good morning, David. The FBI says the 2 suspects were fueled by extremist ideology to, quote, completely destroy Baltimore and inflict maximum damage. Court documents allege Sarah Clendaniel of Maryland met Brandon Russell of Florida while in federal prison. Investigators Monday showed a photo of Clendaniel in a skull mask, often used as a symbol of white supremacy. Federal investigators alleged the 2 planned simultaneous attacks on 5 Maryland substations, similar to recent successful attacks on the grid in Oregon, Washington State, and North Carolina. Law enforcement records allege Russell started a local chapter of a neo-Nazi group called Atomwaffen. The group promotes extremist ideology through training videos that seek to start race wars and sow chaos.
Hey YouTube world, Harvest is plenty. I hope all is well. I'm back with another video for you guys. Chao and the power grids. And so just still keeping with the theme on the coming blackout, or when they planning on turning out the lights. As I said in my previous video with Davis and the World Economic Forum, a lot of times it's not just them. There are also bad actors in our midst. And these bad actors, they have a bone to pick, or they have a plan, or they just want to cause chaos, or maybe they are secretly just patsies and cutouts on a government dole that's been put up to attacking the power grids and committing as much chaos as possible. These Luciferians, they believe that from order comes chaos. Ordo Chao, it's Latin. Or, order can be restored from the chaos. And the order that they're talking about is the New World Order. They want to create so much bloodshed, murder, mayhem, and chaos that the old world will pass away and the new Luciferian world will emerge from the ashes. As you see on the screen, it's the phoenix bird in front of you. And the Egyptian phoenix bird is a mythological bird. They said it flies so high into the sun that it burns up and its ashes, come down to the ground. And from its ashes, it reincarnates or rebuilds itself, rebirth. And it starts all over again. And so they're looking for complete chaos so they can restore order and bring up a new world order. That's the plan.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order.
A new world order. A new world order. A new world order. A new world order. A new world.
And President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
So you see, guys, it really doesn't matter whether it's coming from a Republican or a Democrat. Actually, the Republican and Democratic parties are just one party, not 2 parties. They're just 2 wings on the same New World Order bird. That's all it is. They like to divide and conquer the people and split people up on topics like education, abortion, gun control, so on and so forth. You guys know all the hot topics and buttons that they use to push people and divide them up. But at the end, they're working to accomplish the same goal. That's all it is. Once you're able to see through the fog or see through the BS, cut through the BS, you can understand that they're manipulating the population, so they can take over easy. They're going to sow all this chaos. And then they're going to come out with these same Democratic and Republican politicians to sell you on this New World Order plan, to sell you on the cashless society, to sell you on why you should be microchipped and tagged and all of the other stuff. But anyway, another video for another time. But take a look at these clips that I put together for you about these bad actors attacking the U.S. power grid. Just prepare, be ready, be safe. I love you guys. Make sure as you're making your preps that Jesus Christ is your first prep. He's the light of the world. He's the Lord of lords. He's the King of kings. There's no darkness that was ever found in him. He's your protector. He's your provider. So keep him first in everything that you do. Make sure that your faith is much stronger and is much larger than your fear. Fear over faith. We were given the spirit of power and sound mind, not the spirit of fear. So don't fear what these Luciferians want to do. Let them move forth, and God will catch them up and trap them up and destroy them. Until my next video, thank you guys. Take care. God bless.
The FBI is investigating a series of attacks on U.S. power grids. In North Carolina, thousands were left without power for days after gunfire damaged 2 substations. Shots were also fired this week near an energy facility in South Carolina, and recent attacks were reported in Oregon and Washington state. For more, let's bring in Scott Sweeto with nearly 3 decades at the ATF and FBI. Scott is a former federal investigator. With these new reported incidents in North Carolina, the Pacific Northwest, does the evidence suggest a broader conspiracy?
I wouldn't say conspiracy necessarily when you're talking about the same people being involved, but there's absolutely been an uptick in these kinds of incidents, actually over 100 just this year alone in the first 8 or 9 months, according to the Department of Energy.
Wow, that's a huge number. It's sort of striking that we're I guess it's really the attention of North Carolina that's brought it to the fore.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, it takes sometimes a spectacular incident like this, or the 2013 attack in Metcalfe, California, which caused over $15 million damage to a PG&E facility, to really focus the attention of the public and the federal government to maybe do something about this.
All right, physical attacks on the U.S. power grid have skyrocketed recently.
Yeah, and that's right. And the uptick is expected to continue this year.
According to the Electricity Information Sharing and Analysis Center, physical security incidents rose 71% last year compared to 2021.
Well, let's bring in CBS News Homeland Security and Justice reporter Nicole Skanga. Hey, Nicole, tell us what's behind the increase in physical attacks to the U.S. power grid.
Lana, good to be with you. Nearly 4,500 incidents tracked over the past 2 years, and analysts determined that an uptick in ballistic damage, incidents of intrusion or tampering, and vandalism drove this increase in serious attacks impacting the power grid last year. What does that mean? Well, according to this confidential study we obtained, officials are tracking incidents impacting power grids both inside and outside the perimeter of electrical infrastructure. Now, inside the perimeter, intrusions may occur into control houses to damage or destroy equipment, set fires, or even tamper with switches. But significant damage has also been done outside the perimeter. Attacks that run the gamut from throwing objects at electrified equipment all the way to focused ballistic attacks aimed at de-energizing some of this equipment. Viewers might remember we saw deliberate shootings last December at 2 substations in Moore County, North Carolina. That attack turned the lights out for days for roughly 45,000 people. It's worth mentioning in that case, officials are still searching for a suspect or suspects behind that attack, as well as the motive there.
Power stations are under attack across the country, including right here in Washington state.
Federal officials say that local substations were physically targeted even before North Carolina's power grid attack.
Fox 13's Jennifer Dowling joins us to talk about how many sites are located right here in this area, Jen.
At least 5 power substations have been targeted in both Oregon and Washington. That's in the middle of an increase in online calls for attacks on critical infrastructure. And experts say those calls for attacks have ramped up following the midterm elections.
Attacks on the infrastructure have been on the radar of extremist anti-government groups for a good 30 years.
With attacks being reported on local power substations in Oregon and Washington, extremism expert Randall Blazak says it sounds like a repeat of something the country has been experiencing, stretching back to the period following the Oklahoma City bombing.
What a lot of people don't know is that many of those plots in the late 1990s were started but were thwarted by the FBI. They broke up a lot of planned attacks on power stations, on dams, and other infrastructure targets like that.
It's unclear who is responsible for recent damage to several substations in November, but a federal memo reads that during recent physical attacks, suspects have been utilizing hand tools, arson, firearms, and metal chains.
Infrastructures are relatively soft targets. They're usually not guarded There is little surveillance.
I spoke with representatives of Puget Sound Energy, the Cowlitz County Public Utility District, and the Bonneville Power Administration, all confirming attacks. Puget Sound Energy released a statement saying, "We have had 2 cases of vandalism occur in late November at 2 different substations. As per our standard process, both cases were reported to local law enforcement immediately and also shared with peer utilities and the FBI. When I asked, PSE declined to say which community those attacks were in. Its coverage area covers several counties, as shown on this map. Further south, Alice Dietz with the Cowlitz County Public Utility District told me 2 attacks happened in mid-November in the Woodland area. She says since then, PUD has added more security and will continue to. She says they are working with local and state law enforcement as well as the FBI. The Bonneville Power Administration also confirms that attacks happened on a substation in Clackamas, Oregon. Spokesperson Kevin Winger says BPA determined it was a deliberate physical attack over the Thanksgiving holiday, during which BPA operators discovered someone had cut perimeter fence and damaged equipment inside. Winger also told me by phone another incident happened in Centralia August 11th with minimal damage and no disruption to power. But that event is now getting more scrutiny in light of recent attacks. He says BPA has also stepped up patrols at its substations. Blazek says use of social media has accelerated a lot of this activity. He's currently working under a federal grant from Homeland Security to investigate ways to interrupt violent extremism.
And here is yet another theory or a different perspective on what's going on behind the scenes.
About the domestic terrorism attack that happened in Metcalfe, California. And how the reason I want to talk about that is it shows how vulnerable it is and how unsophisticated it can be to make this amount of to take the grid out.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So this was 2013, Metcalfe, California, which is outside Silicon Valley. And this was a major substation. So this attack, was covered actually in 2022 in a January 60 Minutes story that was rerun again in August. You can go to YouTube and watch that story. It was fortunately, so it seems that 8 or 9 terrorists were utilizing AK-47s or AR-15s and shooting out, the cooling, facility for these transformers. And fortunately, police got there. They disappeared into the night. They've never solved, who this was. Unfortunately, we were able to divert power such that it did not cause a massive outage in Silicon Valley, but it was frankly a wake-up call. And frankly, it was hidden for about a year until the Wall Street Journal ran a story a year later.
It was hidden?
Yes, it was completely hidden.
Why do you think they hid it?
Because the powers that be did not want the American public to understand that there might be terrorists out there taking out a substation. It's also possible that they didn't want this to create, Me Too attacks, other people saying, oh, we can do this. And therefore, potentially our powers that be have some reasons for, you and I both know, our authorities don't tell us the truth all the time. And so
that's becoming more and more clear every day that goes by.
But what came out of this report was FERC, which is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which does a lot of the regulation for our power grid. They ended up running a study, and they found that if there were as few as 9 critical substations were taken out, just key nodes, it could cause the power to go out nationwide in the United States.
9 substations. 9 substations. How many substations are there?
There are about 55,000 substations.
And it would only take 9 substations to
Correct. Yeah.
Would these need to be strategic attacks?
Oh, yeah.
Is there 9 in particular?
Yeah. No, I'm sure there's maybe 50 that would fall within that 9, and haven't seen that report, but it would have to be, key substations.
This attack in Metcalf, California, sounds like the U.S. Navy SEALs helped with some type of an after actions report and said that this was likely a terrorist attack. Then 1 year later, the FBI concluded, go figure, that it wasn't a terrorist attack, but they had no further information.
Right.
So they don't know what it is, but they just know it's not a terrorist attack.
Exactly.
The FBI is an extremely unimpressive organization. Let's move on to cyber attacks. And I think, actually backing up, another thing is this physical attack. We had mentioned at the beginning of this that China and Russia are working together. It's likely China is going to take Taiwan before the end of the Biden administration. We already see Putin made his move under the Biden administration. These two are working together. You're starting to see more and more countries take sides with China and Russia. I saw France is looking to drop the U.S. dollar. Saudi Arabia and Iran, they just made a deal. They're dropping the U.S. dollar. India is part of BRICS. Brazil wants to drop the U.S. dollar. Argentina wants to drop the U.S. dollar. And it looks like we've been weaponizing U.S. currency so much that now it's becoming a trend that people don't want the currency weaponized against them. And more and more and more people are starting to drop the U.S. dollar. This is coming from China. China and Russia are working together. China produces, I can't remember how much of our power grid.
So
200 transformers. You said 9.
It's actually 300.
300.
Yeah, the number's 300.
300 transformers come from China.
Right.
All they need to do is take out 9 transformers. And right now we have a wide open southern border where we already know there are people from all over the world flooding into this country. Why wouldn't China send in a couple of operatives to take out 9 substations and kill our power grid right before they hit Taiwan? I mean, it just seems, if they didn't do it, it wouldn't make any sense. Why wouldn't they? It's so vulnerable and it's so easy just to send a couple of people across a wide open border that seems like half the country doesn't want to secure and take out 9 transformers.
I think it is so imminent, and I'm with you, Sean, in terms of China has plans to go after Taiwan, and they will do it before the end of the administration. So that's only a year and a half away.
Yeah.
And it's coming. And so why not? Frankly, I think an aircraft carrier is going to be taken out, and then we're going to be potentially in World War III. And because I think our aircraft carriers are likely sitting ducks, for the Sunburn missiles, and that we will, and taking out critical civilian infrastructure like the power grid, and maybe they don't do it nationally, maybe they do it regionally, or a big city just to alert America about where they are in terms of a hostile act, as a saying, here's what you got. Do you want us to do more? We'll do it.
How long would it take? Let's say they were successful and they took out a bunch of these substations. Let's say they took out all 300. How long would it take just to replace one of these gigantic transformers? In the documentary you guys talk about, you show how big these transformers are. I mean, they would have to remove stoplights, maybe even remove some overpasses. I mean, this isn't just a delivery of a 6x6 box generator. These transformers are the size of buildings.
Right. Exactly. They're hundreds of tons each. And therefore, how long would it take? If there were 3 or 4, they could probably get it done in a month or so. But if there are 50 or 200, then we're talking about chaos.
And there you have it, the motto of the 33rd degree of Freemasonry. Ordo ab Chao. Order comes out of chaos. Out of chaos, a new world order will be born.